Butterfly inscription is considered as one of the best inscriptions in Rise of Kingdoms, but is it worth the hype? Let's find out. Hey everyone, what's going on? It's Akina here, back with another Rise of Kingdoms video. If you are enjoying the content, please don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, it really means a lot and helps the channel to grow. A quick apologies before the video, my voice is a little bit croaky for this one. Hopefully it still sounds okay and you can get all the information. So, butterfly inscription. What is it? Why does it have so much hype around it? For those that don't know, it's a special inscription in the instrument slot in the Delta formation. Delta, we know, is the formation that is boosting combo damage specifically, and with Arthur running combo and then also the new rally lead coming out for cavalry, Subutai, many are looking at this inscription as a game changer and almost a minimum necessity to have if you are going to run this march on the field. So what is it? The wielder's troops gain 3.5% boost to combo damage dealt. Okay, that's great, but that's not the game changing part. Combo attacks launched by their troops are 20% more likely to trigger effects triggered by launching a basic attack. Now this is the interesting part, because 20% more chance to trigger effects. There are a lot of effects that can be triggered by launching a basic attack, and the majority of those only have a 10% chance to proc. An example of that being the Ring of Doom. 10% chance to gain a 50%, or if talented, 65% bonus to damage for 2 seconds. 10% is not a lot, but how much of a difference does it actually make if you add 20% chance onto that? And what we also have to be wary of is it's 20% chance of it proccing after a combo attack, not a regular basic attack. So it's not going to be just a flat 20% increase. It's going to be slightly below. But how much below, and does it actually make that much of a difference? So how are we going to test it? Well, we're going to run 10 different battles. All of these battles will be featuring Arthur, and they're going to be up against Dragonlancer. Dragonlancer is going to have no talents, no equipment, no armaments, and just 100k T5 cav. Whereas Arthur is going to have 40k T5 cav, but he's going to have his equipment, and for 5 of those battles, he's not going to have the butterfly inscription. For the other 5, he is going to have it. And we're going to see what happens. Now, there are a number of different talents, skills, accessories, and then even iconic tier 5 abilities that we want to be able to test. We're going to focus on a few of them. In particular, all of the ones that proc based on a basic attack. The ones that we are going to be testing are Force of Nature, Blizzard of Blows, which again is also in the combo talent tree, Mab Darrigan, which is Arthur's expertise skill. Then if we move on to the accessories, we're going to be testing both the ring and the horn to see whether their proc rate increases, if so by how much and how significant this increase is. And then finally, we're going to be testing Shattering Strike from the Pride of the Khan, Furious Strike from Sacred Dominion, the tier 5 ability of Ash of the Dawn, and then Divine Might from our accessories. And our goal here is to assess just how much of a difference is Butterfly Effect actually making to the proc rate of these different items, and is it as game changing as people are making out? Ignore the equipment being on Huo, the equipment is on Arthur. This is just to show you all of the different abilities that we are going to be testing. And also we are not including the chess piece because that is procced off receiving a basic attack, so it does not get impacted by the butterfly effect. This is about to get very data heavy. So after both fights, 5 with no butterfly effect, 5 with the butterfly effect. And bear in mind that the butterfly effect did come with 1.7% attack and defense and 2% damage on top of the butterfly effect itself. So naturally that's going to impact the severely wounded on both sides. But when you compare the two, the difference isn't that startling, just looking at the base report. So summarizing it here, you can see that there's a slight reduction in the severely wounded for Arthur, but when the difference is averaged out, it's about a 700-800 point sev swing in favor of butterfly effect, with quite a big difference in the number of turns that it took to kill off Dragonlancer. But this information doesn't really give us what we need. We need to go a bit deeper into the data, look into the battle report, all 1,000 lines of it that I've had to read through to understand how often every one of these items is proccing. So let's dive in and start off with Force of Nature. So Force of Nature is the talent in the combo talent tree. Whenever this commander's troop launches any type of basic attack, it has a 10% chance to gain a 3% bonus to damage dealt for 3 seconds, with a 5-second cooldown. Now, after the 5 fights with no butterfly effect, the average number of times that this procced during the battle was 7, but the average times it procced with the butterfly effect ended up being 8. So 1 extra proc on average. Seeing as there's a turn difference, we need to be able to normalize the data and make each one comparable with one another. When you calculate the proc per turn and then look at it from a 100 turn perspective, you can see there's a 1.77 difference in the number of procs of Force of Nature with butterfly versus without. And when you break this down a bit further, without butterfly effect, it's averaging about 0.68% damage, whereas with butterfly, it's 0.84%, almost a 0.2% increase. It's not the biggest skill, I think that's very clear, but it's almost a 1% damage increase when you have the butterfly effect. But that difference is very, very marginal. Definitely not that game changing. Then let's move on to the other talent, Blizzard of Blows. This one's a little bit different. It has no cooldown, but for every basic attack, there is a 10% chance to reduce the target's troops' health by 1.5 for 3 seconds. And this works just like the dagger. It stacks up to 5 times, the dagger is 3. Multiple troops can stack this at the same time. So this is going to be much more effective when you have more Arthurs or more commanders with the combo tree, so that could be Subutai as well, hitting the same target. It's much more likely to proc as all of these commanders are able to stack Blizzard of Blows. In the case of this 1v1 battle, interestingly, without the butterfly effect, this talent procced an average of 12.4 times throughout the battle. Or we can round up to 13.42 times in 100 turns. Whereas with the butterfly effect, it only managed to get 11.45 procs looking at 100 turns. This raises the big question about butterfly effect. When we're looking at the previous example of a Force of Nature, it was only a marginal difference when you really break it down. And now when we're looking at the butterfly effect, we see that it's having the opposite effect. Now, as I said before, these tests, they're only 5 with and 5 without. That is not enough of a sample to really get the exact benefit of the butterfly effect. But if anything, it brings to light just how random the butterfly effect is. And like all RNG, hence the name RNG, random number generator, the butterfly effect can either go one of 2 ways. It's either going to continuously proc and benefit your march, increasing all of the abilities, the skills that it's affecting, or it's just going to miss, and it'll be just like you don't have the inscription whatsoever. But we'll summarize more at the end. Let's keep going through the different skills, accessories, level 5 iconic gear, and see if there's any differences or trends that we can pick up. Okay, let's move on to Arthur's expertise skill, Mab Doragon. This is a really interesting one because it got many people's attention, specifically the wording part about being able to proc multiple times per second. Some thought that this skill is going to be able to compensate potentially for the lack of damage in comparison to the other half of expertise for Arthur, impacting skill damage. So breaking this one down, when looking at 100 turns again, 12.77 procs took place without the butterfly effect, and 14.02 took place with it. When you compare the amount of times that it managed to proc itself 3 or more times. For those that don't know, when this skill procs, it has a 50% chance to proc again, and then every subsequent proc goes down by half of the previous. So as you can see on the screen, it goes from 50% to 25% chance to 12.5 to 6.25, etc, etc. Technically, if you're really lucky, it can just keep going. But without the butterfly effect, it only managed to proc itself 3 times, the third one being only 12.5% chance, 1 time, out of all the 5 fights. Whereas with the butterfly effect, it was able to proc 4 times. But even with the butterfly effect, it wasn't able to get to the 4th proc. And when you break the numbers down, you can see once it gets down to 17.5%, it's really not that dissimilar from 12.5%. It's a 5% difference. That 20% gap that the butterfly effects brought got halved each time also. So it goes from a 20% boost to 10% to 5% to 2.5%. So even with the butterfly effect, getting 3 or more is not that much more likely. But right now, the purpose of this skill is to create more chances for procs of other skills, talents, abilities. The name combo couldn't be more perfect for how this commander works and how everything reacts to a combo attack. As you can see on the screen now, the chain effect that Mab Dorrigan can cause on just a normal turn, not even a skill damage turn, just a random turn, can cause so many different abilities to trigger. And that's also helped by the butterfly effect. Okay, now we've covered the talents that we were looking at, we covered the skill, and now it's time to look at the equipment. So Pride of Khan, this helm currently doesn't benefit Arthur in any way. It will proc, but it doesn't mention combo in the description. It's only benefiting skill damage, and it's only benefiting smite. Therefore, it will proc, and nothing happens. But just for the sake of testing, we can see there are 2 more procs in 100 turns for the Pride of Khan. But when combo damage does get added to the description, I expect it to not be as effective compared to skill or to smite damage. Combo works by having multiple, smaller damage factors. If we're using Pride of the Khan and this procs, it's your next, well, it should be your next combo damage dealt. But you recall, Mab Dorrigan's only doing 300 damage factor. Even if you boosted that by 15%, it's not going to make much difference, yet alone 8.5. So Pride of the Khan is not that exceptional for combo. Now Sacred Dominion procs quite frequently. There was actually a 3 difference in the number of procs that it had over 100 turns. This equated to roughly 1.4% damage increase from without the butterfly effect, up to a 1.95% damage increase with it. So that's a fairly substantial increase, showing that the butterfly effect is having a great impact on Sacred Dominion. But as mentioned before, this is only 5 tests on each side. Sacred Dominion is averaging higher number of procs than it usually would if we were to do, let's say, 1,000 fights. And if you get it to proc right before your skill, then it's going to have greater value. On to Asher the Dawn, and this one, there was a 1.5 difference in the number of procs over 100 turns. We can say with uptime, it's roughly around 14% increase with butterfly versus without. But it's very difficult to pinpoint. You could be receiving skill damage on the field from many different points that you have no control over. So nailing down a specific figure is a bit more difficult for this one. Okay, moving on to Divine Might. And if you haven't checked out the video on how 2 Divine Mights work, the card is at the top. So be sure to check that one out. But with Divine Might, we actually noticed a similar trend to Blizzard of Blows. Without the butterfly effect, was proccing more than with it. Now the only explanation for this is that we were just unlucky when we had the butterfly effect and it didn't proc. But that's a very real reality that you could also be facing on the field. Your Arthur as primary is going to have so much RNG. He could go out and just have the most insane report. But then he could also go out and have a pretty average report. You might fight the exact same way, but combos just might not chain against one another, and therefore RNG just beats you. And that's a very real reality and kind of summarizes combo quite well. Okay, on to Ring of Doom. We've just got our 2 accessories left to do. So Ring of Doom, this one, fairly simple. It procced 11 times versus 8.6 times. So a 2.79 increase for Ring of Doom. And with the butterfly effect, that's a roughly 3.6% damage increase overall. And then finally looking at the Horn. The Horn is a real interesting one and could probably justify its own video entirely. When you're looking at just the base number of procs that the Horn is getting with and without the butterfly effect, on average, without the butterfly effect, it's only 38 procs. With the butterfly effect, it goes up to 45, so a 7 difference. But as you can see on the screen now, some of these procs of the Horn are in the same turn. As I mentioned, the chain of effects, you can see 5 Horn procs in front of you on the same turn. Now, many people talk about making sure you overcompensate on rage, so you're always hitting the cap, you're skilling as fast as humanly possible. But 5 horn procs in a turn? There gets a point where that just becomes useless rage, completely useless. And when you break down the rage build of Arthur, he'll get 86 from his attack if the horn is going to proc once, twice, 3 times. There needs to be at least 1 combo attack. So we can say Undying Fury will proc 2 times because it's a basic plus a combo. For every combo, no quarter procs, so that's another 15 rage. So if the horn were to proc 2 times, it would be 100, and that would total at 219 rage in a turn. We know the rage cap is not too far from that. So even without a procced horn, at 2 procs only, you're pretty much maxing out your rage, and everything beyond that is just pointless rage. So what I did was every time it procced 3, 4, 5 times in a turn, I just took it as 2. And then when you consider the number of turns, so per 100, we could see that it was 37.6 for without the butterfly effect and 42.76 with. So a difference of around 5 horn procs. But what does 5 horn procs mean? Like, how much difference is that? And when you break it down even further and you take a look at how many skill cycles with the butterfly effect and without the butterfly effect, the difference that was found was next to nothing. As the theme of this video has become, it's down to chance. Your horns could proc at the exact moment you need them to, reducing your skill cycles multiple times, but it could also do next to nothing. So that's a lot of information to take in, so let's summarize everything. On the left, we have a summary of all of the different procs per 100 turns from the testing that we did. On the right, we have a general overview of the increase in damage as a result of the testing that we had done. For the purposes of trying to find a more numerical value for the value of butterfly effect, for Divine Might, I took an average of what the increase is more likely to have been in relation to the others with the exact same chance of proccing. Things like Ash of the Dawn and Mab Darrigan can be measured in a different way, so uptime and the number of procs that is likely to occur, rather than necessarily damage increase. As you can see, Butterfly's effects are different depending on what it's triggering. So it's a lot harder than just saying, okay, this inscription is the same value as Intrepid, for example, the wedged 10% skill damage inscription. So final closing points to finish off the video. Combo's potential depends on a series of chained abilities that proc one another. The butterfly effect only enhances the likelihood of these chains taking place. But it's really important to note that even with the butterfly effect, the RNG is huge. You need to be comboing multiple times to increase the likelihood of these chained abilities taking place. But there's still no guarantee, even with multiple procs of combo damage and the butterfly effect, there's a chance that you just might get unlucky. The benefits therefore will be barely noticeable. But when paired with another commander, especially another combo commander like Subotai, or a commander with a very powerful instant proc skill, let's say Philip, you're going to get much greater value from the butterfly effect. All of this testing done was exclusively on Arthur. Another commander will naturally produce more benefits from butterfly effect. It's also going to be skilling, which increases the chance of one of the procs benefiting the second skill, not just the first. Then you throw in the instant proc, and of course, the benefits continue to chain, and the march continues to do better. So that's a summary of butterfly effect. I hope you found this interesting. This video did take a long time to make, so please would really appreciate it if you could like the video, subscribe to the channel, and if you watched the whole thing, thank you so much. But yeah, thank you very much. I'll catch you all next time.